Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, likely 2016 candidate, is having the first big moment of the nascent presidential race. He's had a couple weeks of glowing coverage following a strong appearance in Iowa. He's now ahead in the polls both in Iowa and New Hampshire, home to the crucial first two nominating contests. But as Walker's been establishing his national bona fides, he's found himself embroiled in a political scandal at home over Wisconsin's beloved public university system and whether the governor is opposed to, and I am quoting here, the search for truth. On Tuesday, Governor Walker unveiled his budget proposal for the next fiscal year. And buried in the text of the proposal were a few revisions to the mission statement of the University of Wisconsin system. Now, among the changes, the proposal adds the phrase, "to meet the state's workforce needs," and it takes out the somewhat loftier aim to extend knowledge and its application beyond the boundaries of its campuses. And in a move that's got a lot of people questioning just what exactly the governor believes in, Walker's proposal would delete the following line, "Basic to every purpose of the system is the search for truth." Proposed revisions were immediately seen as an assault on what's known as the Wisconsin idea, a century-old tradition prizing service to the state as a fundamental goal of the state's fantastic university system. Responding to the changes, the president of the University of Wisconsin said in a statement, quote, "The Wisconsin idea is embedded in our DNA. It is so much more than words on a page. It is the reason the UW system exists. It defines us and forever will distinguish us as a great public university. Wisconsin must not abandon this core principle and value." Okay, so amid the mounting outrage, Governor Walker told a reporter from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel yesterday the university officials had in fact seen the changes and they'd failed to raise concerns.
That was language that they went through, looked at, somehow overlooked. So for us, we have no problem putting that in. Our focus is on creating authority that gives them full flexibility, not on changing the mission.
Are you surprised by the response from the UW system president, by the chancellor?
Well, I think it's surprised in the sense that they saw the language and didn't point that out then.
By the end of the day, however, Walker had fully backed off the proposed revisions, dismissing them as a simple drafting error. Quote, "The Wisconsin idea will continue to thrive. The final version of the budget will fix the drafting error. The mission statement will include the Wisconsin idea." But then the plot thickened. Today, the Journal-Sentinel unearthed documents showing that staff in Walker's budget office had actually been the ones requesting these specific line-by-line changes to the language of the mission statement. This was not an accidental drafting error. And as a result, Walker was forced to change his story yet again, this time chalking the whole thing up to miscommunication. He explained today in a written statement, "Late on Wednesday, my chief of staff spoke again with UW system staff and found they had raised a concern with the state budget office about the specific language. Unfortunately, when my office told the budget staff to keep it simple, they took that to mean that we only wanted workforce readiness language in the mission when we really wanted the language added to the existing mission statement." You got that? Okay. Sounds totally reasonable, I guess. Walker reiterated he won't move ahead with the changes and reaffirmed his commitment to the Wisconsin idea. But there's another provision in his budget which tells a very different story about that commitment. A $300 million cut to the University of Wisconsin system, amounting to 13% of its entire budget. Joining me now, Lisa Graves, Executive Director of the Center for Media and Democracy based in Wisconsin. Lisa, so how did this whole thing get blown up into an issue?
Well, we actually broke the story on our site, prwatch.org, earlier this week. We were shocked to find this language in the budget. When Walker started claiming that it was not intentional, as a drafting error, it was a bit of a shock as well, because it was quite intentionally a strikeout. It wasn't about drafting language or adding language. It was about striking out the idea that a public university is supposed to be engaged in the search for the truth. I'm an alum of the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse, and I, along with thousands of alums and professors and others, were shocked and appalled at Walker's disregard for the search for truth and disregard for this fundamental commitment that has made Wisconsin's public university system one of the crown jewels of the state and one of the crown jewels of public universities in the country.
Yeah, so here's what's strange about this, I think, from a perspective outside Wisconsin. I mean, the Wisconsin system, I spent some time in Wisconsin. The UW system's amazing, and it's not just Madison. I mean, it's Serene Green, or it's La Crosse, or Milwaukee. I mean, all throughout the state, there's these campuses. It's an incredible system. It's probably next to California, with California, one of the best in the whole country. Why has Scott Walker decided the next battle he is going to wage is going to be against the UW system?
It's really extraordinary because you'd think that with his presidential aspirations, he would be talking about his game plan to be in favor of education, in favor of expanding opportunities for Americans. This cut, this $300 million, comes on top of other cuts. This is, nearly 13% of the university's budget. It's devastating. Its impact will be felt by students across the state. And ultimately, it weakens our state. It weakens our economy. It's just the wrong move in the wrong direction. And it comes in the face of Walker's previous tax cuts, which basically benefited some of the biggest corporations and individuals in the state to the disadvantage of ordinary people, including students in the state. And so I think he signals time and time again that he's got the wrong priorities. His priorities reflect the priorities of the billionaires that he's beloved by. But in fact, this latest move and this bumbling by Walker is more the Walker snow job. And in Wisconsin, we know a snow job when we see one.
Well, yes, although here's the thing, right? Walker's won 3 elections in 4 years. He has framed this, I think, in a kind of fascinating way politically, where he's basically saying $300 million cut, but capping tuition for the next 2 years, right? So the most politically difficult thing for him, which was that it would lead to tuition hikes, he can sort of skate away from. And the squeeze gets made up by these pointy-headed intellectual professors who are layabouts anyway and don't want to do any work, and they're the ones he's going after. And that strikes me as, even if a massive misrepresentation of the truth, perhaps there's some audience for that politically in the state.
Well, I think it shows his manipulative nature. I mean, the 2 years is definitely with the view, I'm sure, of the 2016 race to try to prevent there from being any rebellion against hiking the students' tuition even further. So many students in this country are saddled with enormous debt, and Walker's changes will only add another generation of students to this increasing debt that students face coming out of school. Walker has played this game before. He has quite a bit of a bait-and-switch campaign going on. His brown bag lunch campaign, which swept him into office, mentioned nothing about his attack on the unions. He gave a speech about the university budget earlier this week and didn't mention this major change to its mission. This is part of his modus operandi, and I think that while he may have some superficial appeal to some people, the reality is he has barely a majority of the voters supporting him in Wisconsin. He didn't grow his majority at all because his policies and his practices are so divisive.
Well, and there's also something sort of ingenious about this from a political standpoint. It seems to me that one of his MOs in office has been to sort of use policy as a mechanism by which to reduce the political power of people that would oppose him, progressives, the left. I mean, go after the unions, right, which is a huge pillar of progressive power in the state of Wisconsin. And another big pillar of progressive power in the state, frankly, is the university system. I mean, particularly in terms of the city of Madison, Wisconsin, particularly in terms of student voting, particularly in terms of the kinds of values that are thrown off by that system, the kinds of folks that tend to move through it. I mean, it does seem to me like he is going after folks and going after the sources of power of progressives in Wisconsin, and he started with the unions, and now he's going to the university system.
Well, that's exactly right, and he also backed voter restrictions that make it harder for Americans to vote, make it harder for Wisconsinites to vote, and in particular made it harder for university students to vote. The bill that went through Wisconsin was designed to require your address be on your student ID and there be an expiration date. The idea that students in Wisconsin are traveling to their hometown and voting in their college town to double vote is absurd. There's no record of that type of fraud, but that's just the type of maneuver that Walker pushed as part of his consistency with the ALEC game plan to make it harder for Americans to vote, and really what in many ways is part of this sort of Koch-backed effort to push and entrench this sort of right-wing majority or supermajority in some states.
All right, Lisa Graves, thank you.